Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel, and I'm the host for the session for the next hour, and very much looking forward to greeting you to our little lovely session. The topic for today is called Sustainable Transformation Through Collaboration. So what does that mean? Well, I could tell you what that means, but that's not the idea of the session. The idea of this session is to find out what this could mean, what it could mean for us, what it could mean for you, and what to learn out of this. What we're going to do is we're going to take this into 2 or 3 different steps. We're going to find out what Circle 17 is. Then we're going to have a perspective of university, how university sees this whole issue, and then how the whole corporate world sees this whole issue. My name is Daniel. I'm a serial entrepreneur myself. I love hosting these kind of things, and I'm pretty much driven by curiosity. Without any further ado, what I would like to do now is I would like to find out who you are. And for this, please go to a website called Slido. Slido is sli.do. It's exactly what I'm going to do right now. So take up your mobile phone or whatever it is, go to slido.com, and then you enter the hashtag called Circle17. Don't worry, we're not going to ask anything bad or terrible. We just want to roughly know who you are and what your knowledge and skill level is. So this is what I'm doing right now. We're going to switch over to Slido as well to see actually in real time what's happening. Again, it's hashtag Circle17. You just enter it into the Slido, as it's called, and in real time, you should be able to see the question. This is what's happening right now. And the question is, which type of organization do you represent? That's the first question we like to see. And we're seeing there's 100% of you saying, well, you're nonprofit. There's the beauty of statistics, because 3 of you have only actually managed to find out how this whole thing works. 4 of you, so right now 50% or 2 people are actually from a corporation, which is quite good. So again, you go to slido.com and then you select whatever company you work for, that we understand who you are. Okay, 6 of you are there already, still 50% working for a corporation, which is quite good. Again, if you're new, please go to www.slido.com. Again, this is totally anonymous, but super helpful. If you're listening and going like, nah, I don't know, no. You see, if you're given the chance to vote, please vote. If you don't vote, really weird stuff happens. Don't believe me? Well, just look at the US. Just saying. So anyhow, slido.com, the first question. I can see 2 more of you just decided to vote because you're going, no, not again, not another 4 years. Oh, 9 of you, that's quite good. So we're getting there. That's fantastic, slido.com. Again, I'm not trying to sell anything. We're just trying to learn who you are, that we know where we can take this level of discussion. So it's 40% corporation at this time, 40% non-profit, 10% consultancy, and 10% startup as of now, and still counting, which is great. Again, this helps us to try and understand who you are and what we've done. And the second question is, have you ever collaborated with a startup? Yes or no? Boom, that was quite easy to answer that question, which is quite good. As of now, it's 60% are saying yes. Again, I do actually have majored in statistics many years ago, so I'm quite aware this is not 100% accurate from the results. However, it gives us a rough understanding with whom we're actually talking over there. So as of now, it's 50-50 saying, yes, I have collaborated with startups, and the other 50 are saying, no, but I'm certainly going to do, maybe. So again, we kind of know where to put your skill set. So this is kind of working quite well. Thank you so much for joining and doing this and making it work. Don't forget, you can ask questions anytime over there, and that helps us as well. Good. Now, obviously, this session is run by Circle 17. Now, I could explain to you also what Circle 17 is, but I won't, because we have someone a lot more competent than me to do that. And her name is Fanny Hofbauer. She's actually from respACT, and why she's representing Circle 17 and what that has to do with respACT, she will tell you in about 3 seconds. Fanny Hofbauer, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Danny. And I'm happy to introduce myself to you. My name is Fanny Hofbauer, and I'm the co-lead of Circle 17. And I thank CSI Europe, our national partner, for giving us the opportunity to open up the discussion around startup partnerships for sustainable transformation. So Circle 17 is a program that is currently running between respACT and Austrian Startups, where we put the theme Collaborate for Global Resilience this year. Collaborate because Circle 17 is a matchmaking program where we unite the corporates and the non-profit organizations with the startup ecosystem to establish innovation towards the Sustainable Development Goals. We see here a big innovation potential, especially when bringing those two worlds together and finding solutions together that are actually contributing to the SDGs. So with this initiative, we actually really want to show the corporates and the startups that these 17 goals are not just 17 beautiful, colorful goals, but actually 17 possibilities, 17 business opportunities, and even more opportunities than 17 because there's so much that you can do to each SDG. Why resilience? Why collaborate for global resilience? This year we saw how much interconnected businesses are to their surroundings, to the health of society, but also the nature. And what we also see is that unfortunately, COVID won't be the last crisis we face. There's going to be, or at least we see a bigger wave of crisis approaching us, which is climate change. So it's more important than ever to become resilient and actually foster your resilience, which is the capacity to persist, adapt, and transform your business in the face of change. We really want to take this crisis as an opportunity and say, hey, this is the time to build back better and find solutions how to become more resilient. And in 6 challenge tracks we defined where we see that innovations are needed, which actually contribute to a resilient economy. So that is innovations in environmental sustainability, with people and safety, energy and climate action, sustainable finance, sustainable value chains, and sustainable products and services. So these 6 challenge tracks build kind of the topic resilience for the Circle 17 journey. So the participants go through these 5 phases. We are currently in a discovery phase where we define with the corporates and non-profit organizations what challenges do they face and how to host their challenge for a collaboration with startups. At the Impact On, which is a weekend full of collaboration and co-creation, the startup, the social innovators come together with the challenge hosts, which are the non-profit organizations and the corporates. And here we collaborate and co-create new solutions that are contributing to the SDGs to their challenges. Once we have developed the first ideas and we see, hey, these are actually really promising, we need to develop them further. These ideas are then taken into the testing phase where they get additional guidance and personal coaching on the business model. In February, we plan to have a matchmaking event, which is basically a huge networking event where all the stakeholders of the ecosystem come together to support any potential partnership that is built. And last but not least, we do have the touchdown event where we are going to see which partnerships have been built and celebrate these and give them the stage they deserve. If you are interested in to get more information about Circle 17 or maybe even be part of our journey, either as a sponsor, as a mentor, or as an impact expert, feel free to reach out to me. I'm really happy to connect the dots also across Europe. You can find here my email address and obviously also my profile at the SDG Summit. Happy to connect with you. And yeah, so that's from my side. Take over, Danny.
Thank you very much, Fanny. And yeah, thanks for sharing those insights. And one thing stuck with me, you said, that's probably not the last crisis. Unfortunately, I guess you're right. And we're in the middle of one, but again, this is there's so many other things there. And we always think someone has to do something, and that's just you. So when you're listening in, we can do something about this no matter where we are and what we do and what kind of a background we have. Now, startups and collaborating with corporates is always a bit of a challenge. We've seen some of you experience, some of you are still there to make some experience. What we're going to do now is we're going to have 2 short input sessions, both around 10 minutes. And after that, the floor is open for you to ask questions. So first of all, we want to have a look at the university perspective and then the corporate perspective, and then try and mix the best of 2 worlds. And again, you can ask any type of question as of right now. We'll answer them afterwards. So far, so good. Let's turn to academia, specifically to the University of Applied Sciences from Krems in Austria, welcome to our little stage, Christina Bachner. Christina, stage is yours. Hi.
Hi, thank you very much, Danny. And I will give you some academic insights into the collaboration between corporations and startups. And just to make sure that, just a second, I can't switch to the next slide.
Take your time. I bet we'll have it sorted in no time. While you're at it, just out of interest that we can understand where you are based, I'm based in Vienna. Now, obviously, Christina is based in Krems. If you feel like you might just want to post into which city you are as of right now, just post it into the comments. Just gives it a bit of a more interesting feeling to know who you are and what you're at right now. So just post away if you feel like it. If you say, nope, don't want to share it, want to stay in my hole, cool. I'm trying to buy you time, Christina, don't worry.
No, that's fine. Just let me try again.
Take your time, we're good. So I'm going to lead by example. I am based in Vienna, so just post in there where you are right now while Christina's getting her PDF sorted. Don't be shy. Another one in Vienna. Good man. In Brussels in Belgium. Cool. Thank you very much for joining in. Oh, close to Dublin. There you go. Oh, that's nice. That's very nice. Thank you. And again, just post away. Tell us where you're from. In Rome. Ah, oh, fantastic. It's nice. It's nice. God, I sound like Borat right now. This is nice. This is nice. No, I didn't want to sound like Borat. And the clicking has resumed.
Okay, so I'm sorry for the delay.
Don't worry.
I don't know where the problems came from, but let me start again, hopefully in a better way now. So I'll give you some academic insights into the collaboration between companies and startups. But again, it seems as if I'm having, oh no, a problem. Now it works again. So just to make sure that we all have a common language, just let me remind you what we're talking about, startups. I think you'll all agree that startups are companies younger than 10 years, and they use an innovative technology, you use your business model, and there is always, or it's not only radical innovations involved, but the disruptive innovations. So they're really, really changing something. In my research, I'm very much focusing on SMEs and family firms. I've seen in the poll that there are a lot of large corporations that are here today, but I think we can all learn from each other. So hopefully my insights are valuable for all sizes of companies. And SMEs have fewer than 250 employees by definition, and a maximum turnover of 50 million euros. And I always include family firms in my research because I find them very interesting. And even if they exceed the size limits of SMEs, I think they share a lot of characteristics and values with SMEs. So that's why for me they always go together. And collaboration is not just cooperation, which just means working together. Collaboration is much more. It means like creating something together across company boundaries, and like with a product or process that's really being changed at the end of the relationship, or maybe start of a new relationship. And so at first glance, SMEs and startups, they don't seem to have a lot in common. If you look, for example, at their stages of development, at the personal situations, or at the markets or businesses they're operating in, SMEs are very much focused on continuity. They might think about handing over their company to their daughters or sons. So like hanging on, or like continuity is very important in their mindset. Whereas startups, they can't really focus on continuity. They're not there yet. They have a lot of high-speed decisions to make. They have a lot of disruptive implementations. So I think they would like to have continuity, but it takes some time to get there. And also, if you look about the average age of owners of SMEs, they then tend to be much older. Maybe a lot of them are over 50 or 60, because if you hand over your company maybe to your daughter or your son, you won't do that at a very young age. So your kids might be already older when they take over the company. And whereas the founders of startups tend to be quite young, especially if you consider that a lot of them are university spin-offs, that the founders of startups are, maybe just finished university or something like that, or finished a PhD at the university and then founded the startup. So at a first glance, very different. At a second glance, maybe more detailed glance, actually quite similar in various aspects. For example, both of them are very customer-centered. They're very, in a lot of cases, very innovative in niche markets. SMEs, a lot of SMEs are hidden champions. And in both cases, startups and SMEs tend to have very strong, very self-assured leaders with a strong sense of purpose. So that's what really makes them quite similar in a lot of cases. Research has shown that startups in nearly all cases collaborate with some kind of company, maybe another startup, maybe an SME, maybe a large corporation, but which I found very interesting, 80% of startups collaborate with SMEs, which can be due to the fact that SMEs, there are a lot of SMEs, but maybe also because the barriers to get in contact with them are lower than maybe with large corporations, or maybe your startups are afraid to maybe contact larger corporations. But let's have a look at the reasons for collaboration. Both parties have reasons to collaborate with a partner. And those goals really fit well together, in my opinion. And if you look, for example, access to new technologies in a lot of SMEs, there's just not enough knowledge in-house, whereas startups are, as I've already mentioned, often university spin-offs, so they have maybe developed a new technology, they know a lot about new technology, but what they're missing is like customs and traditions in an industry, so it really makes sense to work together and achieve both goals. Also, if you look in investments, SMEs, family firms might have some loose change lying around that they want to invest. And I think hardly any startup would say no to some capital. It can be financial capital, but also social and human capital. So I think they're very happy and grateful for those kind of input. But a lot of it is also just like exchanging and communication on technology, on new technologies, on digitization. And for the startup, it could be like just knowing how to change the structure and the processes in a startup once it gets bigger and once you hire more people. So what that implies and what you need to do in order to still be successful. And of course, a big goal for both parties is, I think, innovation. And the startup has the additional bonus, I think, with an innovation of like at the gain in image and reputation of working with an established partner. If you look at the strength of both parties, I think they also are a good match, and that makes working together so fruitful, so beneficial for both parties. SMEs, they are very much focused on long-term thinking. They want their SMEs to last for centuries. Maybe they don't think in quarters. They think in decades or years. Whereas startups, they're very good at fast implementing decisions. So matching those strengths is really good. And also with regards to risk management, SMEs are, as you might know, rather risk averse, where startups are known for the high risk tolerance. So like mixing them makes, again, very much sense. And SMEs might have like perfected their products, their services over the years using incremental innovation, but maybe the startup has some disruptive ideas to make a product even better. So a lot of reasons for collaboration, in my opinion. Oh, does that mean that like both are a match made in heaven? Yes or no, in my opinion. It can be very beneficial. I will talk about the benefits in a minute, but there are also, I think, before you start working together, a lot of fears and prejudices. There's like this known culture clash because the corporate culture might be so different. Like fears and prejudices of SMEs, how startups could be that you think they are too young, too unreliable, that they don't have a long-term focus. Whereas the startup might think of family firms and SMEs of being like too too inflexible, too old, too not international enough, like filling positions with the people you know and not with people who are doing things best. So to get rid of these fears and prejudices, just building up relationships and communication is very important. I think a lot of these fears are unfounded, but you need to talk about the fears that you have. Otherwise, I think you can't really work together successfully. So just communication is a major thing in collaboration. And if you look at some of the key challenges, you can, by looking at the possible solution, you see again that everything comes down to communication, to building personal relationships, to building up trust, and maybe not by committing fully just at the beginning, but maybe doing it step by step, like, just be careful and building up personal relationships. But the benefits of collaborations are manifold, especially with regards to sustainable innovations, because I think a lot of SMEs have heard about the SDGs, or they are already sustainable, but they need like to have a sustainability strategy, and then it might make sense to work together with a startup. But both parties can profit from that. They can create innovations that can be measured in the number of products generated, in the number of patents get generated, and also in the quality of the generated patients. And again, the survival of the startup is also, I think, a sustainable issue. So a lot of benefits of working together if you talk about mixing up startups and SMEs. And we've talked about, Fanny has talked about resilience. I think resilience is in today's world very important. If you look at the empirical results, it always says that you need slack resources for resilience, but SMEs and startups don't really have slack resources, but what they do have is an entrepreneurial...
Jump in, but please keep an eye on the time. We're at 10 minutes now. Thank you.
So they have an entrepreneurial mindset and a very strong leadership again. So both SMEs and startups tend to be very resilient. And I think this resilience helps them to create innovations that tackle today's societal challenges. So resilience is very important to create sustainable innovations. And to sum up, it takes resources to build up partnerships. You have to identify, approach partners. You can't do it half-heartedly. You need a lot of trust in each other. You need to build up personal relationships. And like the step before that, you need to find each other. And research has shown that often matchmakers are needed to bring together SMEs and startups. For example, universities, consultancies, accelerators, and so on. So thank you very much, and sorry for the complicated start.
And thank you so much for the presentation. And although it was a little tricky initially for being so calm and collected and giving us such a great oversight from the university perspective, however, at the same time, we also want to have a look at a different perspective to understand how both worlds work. First of all, thank you all for posting, and it's so good to see where you're all from and all over this beautiful little Europe. Good. Now let's move on to the corporate world, and that'll be represented by someone who initially comes from academia and has now switched over to the corporate world, so he knows both sides quite well. He works for a company called Greiner Technology and Innovation. His name is Philip Kanowitz. And Philip, on the stage, or at least the virtual stage, is yours. And don't forget, afterwards, we'll do the Q&A session. Philip.
All right. Thanks, Danny, for the introduction. I'll try to share my screen real quick here. I hope this works. Yes, it's working. All right. So welcome, everybody, to this session. I really appreciate that you joined the session, a topic that is very near and dear, and also thanks to Christine, who has presented the academian vision and point of view on the topic, which I think I would like to totally agree with that, I guess. So my name is Philip Kanowitz. I'm head of corporate incubation at Greiner, or more specifically at Greiner Technology and Innovation, and I would like to give you some insights on two topics, mainly the one topic being the sustainability aspect we are currently working on at Greiner, and the other thing is how we engage with the topic of sustainability from a corporate incubation / startup point of view. So first of all, I would like to talk a little bit about the Greiner Technology and Innovation. I will refer to that as GTI. It's probably a little bit shorter and easier to comprehend. So we are kind of a small but diverse team of different people who have quite different backgrounds, and what we essentially do is we focus on innovation on a group level. So basically we do some foresight, we do some future studies, and basically we try to identify opportunities. Now, what I mean by opportunities is that we look at different technologies, upcoming technologies, who might be relevant in the future, not in the near future, but really in the distant future for Greiner. We validate those opportunities essentially, and we do the potential analysis, we do some group research, we also ask our divisions how they feel and what they think about those opportunities. And now, starting in January this year, we also now have InnoVentures, which is our corporate incubation vehicle, so to speak, where we can now act and work upon the future, basically do our own projects, essentially. But basically, this is what we do at GTI. This is the big picture, I would say, in regard to identifying opportunities and then working on those opportunities and creating new ventures, basically. Now, when it comes to innovation in general or opportunities in general, we also have to deal with the topic of sustainability, which is basically not only driven by fear and by global changes, but really also can hold some opportunities, basically, that might help us to be competitive, sustainable in the future. Now, we have recently implemented what is called the Blue Plan, basically the sustainability strategy of Greiner, which is based on three main pillars. First, we have climate change. Of course, one of the biggest issues I would address we have to face at the moment, besides very recent other crises like Corona and a few others. But really, we think that fighting climate change is probably, as I've said before, one of the biggest challenges at the end of the day. A second one is creating a circular business, and I've highlighted this statement because we at InnoVentures, we focus primarily on the second part, basically. So we believe that keeping resources, keeping materials in the loop, as they say, is one essential aspect on how to fight also the climate change on one hand, but also resource scarcity and other things. The third thing is, of course, to empower people, empower our employees, empower the communities in which we are, being at production facilities around the globe, or essentially also our customers or the users of our products. So those are basically those three pillars we are focusing on in terms of our sustainability strategy called the Blue Plan. Of course, it's not one strategy. We have a group strategy as well, but really in terms of sustainability, those are basically the main aspects we are focusing on. And specifically, we at InnoVentures, we focus on how we can create a circular business, as for the reasons I've told you before, basically. So let's switch back to InnoVentures and how we basically create those circular business models, but beyond that, also other projects that might implement technologies to fight climate change and things like that. So we do that by identifying entrepreneurial opportunities and to then create strategic advantages. So we strongly believe that also with those kind of looming and quite negative crisis and things like that, there is also potentially an entrepreneurial opportunity. And when we think of new technologies in order to fight those challenges, those crises, there is very often also an opportunity involved. And probably this opportunity, for example, being it a new technology can potentially also create a strategic advantage for the organization. So basically, this is the paradigm under which we operate at InnoVentures, which also kind of resembles the big picture I've shown you before, where we do future studies, look on trends and things like that. How do we do that? Here's an overview of the process. So we have steering committees, a committee which helps us and gives us input on different projects. And basically, we have 3 stages of company building in place, where we do first in the black box some desk research, then we act on prototyping in the blue box, and then try to scale the idea, the new venture, basically. And at the end of the day, we have hopefully created a new startup, a new venture, maybe also in terms of the circular economy. And we then try to do the industrial scaling and grow it from there. Now, InnoVentures, as I've said before, is basically the framework to implement visionary and creative ideas, technologies, and basically we do that with opportunities outside of our core business. And probably, and I totally agree that implementing circular business models can also transform those existing business models we have at Greiner, but we specifically at InnoVentures try to look outside of our core business, which is also quite different to maybe what is our sustainability department doing. But we at InnoVentures, again, we focus on things outside of the core business, which then brings us to our targets. So we're looking both for internal projects, internal ideas. We do that via the previously mentioned company building approach, those 3 boxes, basically. And we go beyond existing research and development. So whenever some entrepreneur, so to speak, comes up with an idea that is not in the scope of current R&D efforts in our company, we have now InnoVentures where we can develop this project. But this is not all we do. Projects we can invest in. We do that via corporate venture capital for startups, and specifically we focus on early stage startup, like in the pre-seed or seed stage. So again, we try to be early on board with our startup collaboration. Now, what is the main goal behind all that we do? The main focus is on building the future. So we believe that we need to act on the future today, and therefore we have some resources for doing so, basically. The second thing is we would like to create an environment for radical innovation and complex transformation. Now, whenever we talk about transitioning towards a circular business model, towards circular economy as a whole, we believe that it can be quite a complex transformation from the status quo, and hence, well, we now have an organization, a platform where we can engage with complex transformations. And last but not least, probably one of the most important points here is to learn from startups and to gain access to new markets, to gain access to insights into how startups do, and they do it quite differently, I can say. So they don't have this long tradition, the history, as we do, for example, as at Greiner, but they really can act quickly upon changing conditions on markets and things like that. And we really want to learn basically from them as well. So why sustainability and entrepreneurship, and why does it make sense to engage sustainability with entrepreneurship? Well, as I've said before, implementing sustainability and also the paradigm of circular economy is really a major change for the organization. So we quickly connect this topic to change management, and from there it can get quite interesting and complex. But we believe that at least at GTI, believe that the status quo has to go. This doesn't mean that we think that all the existing things we have at the moment are of less value than new ones, but we believe that a transition from what we have towards something new is quite important, and this is also our key driver in all the things we do on a daily basis. Now, the entrepreneurship and startup collaboration helps to, well, implement complex change projects. So sometimes you really cannot change things quickly, especially in a large organization. So we believe that we can use startups or to invest in startups, to collaborate with startups in order to get going rather quickly. Also, startups, they really can or are more allowed to rethink existing business models, to rethink the status quo, and therefore we believe we can learn a lot from the startups. And last but not least, learning is always quite imminent in whatever we do, basically. But remember, at the end of the day, a startup collaboration is not a sprint, it's really a marathon, and whatever form of collaboration you do, you're building your own startups or you're collaborating with them, with startups in co-developments or investing some money, it's definitely a marathon, and still startups are pretty quick, but don't underestimate the time effort. So with that being said, enough talk, I would say. I'm really looking forward to your questions. Please, let's have a lively discussion, basically. That's what we're in for today. Thanks for joining the session again, and in case you would like to contact me, feel free to do so. We can have a conversation as well about sustainability, startup collaboration, and whatever comes into our mind, any other interesting topic. So again, thank you very much, and looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Philip, and also thank you very much for sharing your insights. And also, by the way, hello to Zagreb. I see you joined us a little later. Now, you've received a bit of an overview of both sides, but as you may have noticed, we're kind of all Austrian based. And as we know where you are from right now, we think probably the best way to start off this session is to give you a bit of an understanding of the Austrian startup ecosystem. So therefore, I'm going to look over and back to academia. Christina, what can you tell us in a couple of seconds about the Austrian startup ecosystem, just to get this whole thing kicking off?
So I think the importance of startups has actually increased rapidly in recent years, also in Austria, I think like any other European country. And the topic has also gained the attention of the general public. So I think it's like a buzzword in media, and I think you can't really get away from startups, which is very good in my opinion. If you talk about numbers, there is no official information about it, but the Austrian Startup Monitor makes a survey and researches, so I think there are very reliable numbers, and they say that 2,200 startups have been founded since 2008, and around 10% are university spin-offs, and of course, as you might think, most of them are the majority are active in the IT industry. They focus on things like artificial intelligence, big data, and the second group are life sciences. So and of course Vienna is considered to be the startup hub of Austria. And yeah, I think there are a lot of interesting startups. I think the most well-known startup in Austria was Rantastic, which was sold to Adidas a few years ago. And I think like the mentality of Austria is maybe kind of traditional and maybe not so like so fast, and maybe thinking longer, taking longer for decisions. But nevertheless, I think we have a very interesting and active startup scene in Austria.
Well, thanks for that overview. And again, if you have questions, just post away, just that you also just now received a bit of an understanding of the Austrian startup ecosystem. Yeah, so let's take a step back, and the topic today is called Sustainable Transformation Through Collaboration. Okay, so we need to collaborate on this. And when you started off talking on this, Christina, I thought it was quite interesting the way you highlighted how this whole thing should work and how this whole thing should be set. And if I can just kind of try and summarize a little bit what you said from your part, you said, well, technically speaking, it's a match made in heaven. However, there are some complications, and I'd like to get Philip's viewpoints on this in just a second. And you said, well, the whole thing is about communication. It's about building a relationship and trust. And then you said the whole thing is not committing too early, but taking it step by step. And then, well, collaboration for resilience. And that made me think, it kind of sounds a little bit like creating a relationship as such. Like you kind of meet and you don't marry on the first day, but you take it step by step, and eventually the relationship matures as soon as trust is established. And then you marry and make a lot of babies. Okay, so that's kind of the good part of it. But usually, I mean, I'm not talking from experience here, I'm happily married, but usually it takes quite a few dates and quite a few people, and knowing where to go to find the right people, you would actually engage with a little further. And I'm quite curious to understand, so where do we start finding the right people to go out for a first startup date? How does that process start? That was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're like the comparison is really apt. So I think it's really like starting a relationship, because in Austria the startups, they don't want, like, they have a long-term focus. They want to like be there for the long term, and the founders also want to at least retain financial ownership. So it's really, I think, a long-term focus for SMEs and startups. But yeah, I think it's just. I think the SMEs, they're not really maybe going to like this events of where the startups present themselves. So it's really, I think it's not so easy to find each other. But I think like these matchmakers, they really have they have a lot of influence because they can connect people, and I think it's I think that's really a really good way to get to know each other. And then I think there are a lot of talks, and a lot of it involves, I think, expectations and what to expect to get out of this relationship, because I think on both sides the expectations tend to be rather high. Do you want maybe to have an unlimited supply of capital from the company, and the corporations expect startups like to create like this tremendous innovation within maybe a few months. So I think the expectations have to be really talked about and discussed properly.
Now, thank you very much, Christina. You mentioned a lot of words, which makes sense, but one word I want to highlight specifically, and that was matchmaking. Now, I'd like to look over to Philip, which is always a bit tricky in the digital world, but I'm actually looking at you on my screen, Philip, not over there.
Yes, I can see you.
Good man, good man.
Not as crisp as in real world, face-to-face, but
yeah.
anyways.
That's the challenges of the new world. However, we talked about matchmaking, and obviously Fanny early on told us a little bit about Circle 17 and what we're doing there. So what kind of a role does like a matchmaking platform such as Circle 17 play for you at Greiner?
So, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you that you say, well, it's kind of a love story. It can be one. So personally, love at first sight, it's a romantic concept, and probably I would say it's more the slow engagement whenever corporates collaborate with startups. Now, onto your question, really. So matchmaking, think of it like one of those dating apps, dating platforms, where you have like different offerings and people basically pursuing the same interest, like getting together and finding out whether it's a match or not, really. Now, we are in the privileged position that we at Greiner, we have now InnoVentures, we have people who do that on a daily basis, like sensing the environment and hopefully finding some interesting startups. Now, Circle 17 and also other platforms really kind of streamline this process and help corporates, us essentially, to think about startups and what they can provide, really, rather than just setting goals that they probably will never fulfill. On the other side, startups, and this is probably, I wouldn't say harder, but I would say that startups have a bigger challenge to find corporates willing to collaborate. They really have to, on their side, do their homework, make their own due diligence, and really figure out what they have from a technology point of view, but any other asset that may be of interest to an corporate, to whomever they are going to present. So yeah, I mean, we do scouting a lot. We try to get engaged with now digitally. We used to go to a lot of evening events, but yeah, we do that. Circle 17 can help, and also the startups really have to be bold and address those corporations.
Now, Philip, before I'd like to ask Saskia's question, thank you very much for asking. I have one more question I'd like to ask you now. If we were to stay with this whole dating picture I drew early on, what are red flags for you? For example, like, well, for me, like I adore dogs, and if I were to be dating and someone would tell me I don't like dogs, I would be, look, you're probably a marvelous person, but you don't like dogs, so I'm out of here. So happily, when I met my wife, she actually had a dog, so that was fantastic. What's a red flag in the startup dating field? One of them that you could share before we get to Saskia's question, kind of nice and short.
Well, I mean, there are probably many red flags associated with each project, but I would say like one red flag for us would be like we look for a long-term relationship, really. It's not like we're looking for a one-night stand and take some profit and run. Really, we want to learn in the long term. So financials are important, but really what's more important to us is a good idea, a great idea, and really a long-term relationship. So that would be one red flag. The other red flag or red flags are associated with personality, really. So at the end of the day, as relationships, as love, as a concept comes down or boils down to human people, humans. And with humans, we have characters, and so we are looking for characters we are willing to work on a daily basis. Really, we are looking for people, human beings. When we have to do a phone call with them, we're looking forward to that phone call, really. And not so much because of all the great technologies and innovations they have, but really because of what they are from a human standpoint. So basically, those are the two main dimensions, I would say. And
thank you for sharing that. It's a nice picture you're painting now. Saskia has asked a couple of questions, and I find the first one she asked really quite interesting. And she says, what makes a sustainable collaboration different other than that they're sustainable? Is there some kind of different way these collaborations are built? What are some specific challenges the two of you could share? And she also wants to know what has been achieved so far. So I find it quite interesting. And maybe we can also add, do the SDGs potentially play a role in that? Whoever feels obliged. Christina, I see you inhaling.
Okay, so I think, of course, sustainable collaboration I think they have like two areas. If like the goal is to create a sustainable innovation, then it makes it a sustainable collaboration, in my opinion. But you can also make like the process of working together more sustainable, but by not doubling the resources, by maybe letting the startup use your facilities, for example, or your offices and that kind of thing. So by not like by economizing on resources, I think it's a very important aspect of sustainable collaboration. And I think a lot of this is learning from each other, and you can't really, I think both of the partners need to have at least some kind of sustainable mindset, and or be willing to adopt a sustainable mindset. I think it really helps. Maybe if a startup is a sustainable startup, maybe they have like maybe it's a social startup or with an environmental focus, and the SME really wants to change something, but it's not ready to do so or doesn't know where to start. So it's really helpful, I think, to have a partner and that supports you, that maybe shapes your values, that helps you to get on this SDG train. I think like starting on your own is often very difficult, in my opinion, and finding a partner which supports you in your SDG journey, I think is very helpful. And
do the SDGs maybe help to establish quickly if we have common grounds relating values? For example, a startup says, look, we want to eliminate poverty, and the corporate says, hey, so do we, let's talk. Or what's your view on the role of the SDGs on this?
I think the SDGs like are values in a way, because, and I think relating to your question before, you have to share the same values. So I think talking about SDGs makes it easier to find out if you share the same values, or what is most important to you. Is it maybe like more the social aspects, or is it more the environmental aspects? It really shapes to get your priorities, I think, and to find out what you could change together.
Now, Philip, before we get to Kate's question, I observed heavy nodding. Anything to add, or are you saying, nope, we're good?
No, I totally agree with academia as usual. So
good man. Then let's get to
yeah.
Please.
No.
Okay.
Let's go ahead.
Thank you. Then let's see. So Kate says, for startups, I think universities are a great place to get new ideas to an embryonic stage and get business leaders to mentor and collaborate with the new students to bring the startups along. Would you agree? So both of you have a substantiated background.
I totally agree. So all for my career in academia is limited to 2 years. So the majority of my life I've been in the startup ecosystem in one way or another. So I would say yes, universities are the best ground to nurture your ideas and also to involve students early on and to think about changing the world, not only probably as a CEO in a couple of years down their career path, but really to give them the necessary tools at university, both practical and some theoretical or conceptual tools as well, and to prepare them for what's coming in the maybe near future. And now with the second part of the question, mentorship, collaboration. Yes, I absolutely believe in mentorship. And basically, this is what I try to do really also at university as a lecturer, but also in my practical context, to not only scout startups and do the due diligence and do all the technical stuff, but really try to be a partner, a mentor, to be the person who probably also sees some things more critical than probably your friends, your parents, your significant others. So also to be like a sparring partner. So yeah, I would say, is there anything left in the question? I'm just looking right now on your students to bring the startup along. Would you agree? Yes, I agree with your question, Kate. Thanks for the question.
So basically you're saying, so if you want to, when you start with this, universities are a great place to take the first steps. Christina?
I'm sorry, Christina, go ahead.
No, I think that university are definitely a great place to start. For SMEs, I think they're sometimes maybe a little reluctant to contact universities, but I think especially the technical university in Vienna, they make really an effort to connect to companies and invite them and show them what kind of ideas they have. So I think there is a lot of great potential there, and I think a lot of good things, great things that can start from the universities.
Good point and well put. Now, we have another 7.5 minutes remaining. That means we have about time for one, maximum 2 more questions. So if you want to ask a question, ask it now or be quiet for eternity, or whatever they say when you get married. So think sharp. This is a great opportunity to ask a good question. And while we're at it, Philip, now obviously some people are gonna Google what Greiner actually is in case they don't know it. And someone might go, hang on, they're making plastics. So maybe you can also tell us like okay, so if Greiner is a plastic company, how do plastics and sustainability kind of interconnect? Because initially people will go, well, that's weird.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably not weird. It's essential, but still, it's quite challenging, I have to say. I mean, obviously plastics, and we all have those pictures in mind of the seaside of a beautiful beach, and yeah, you see plastic lying around. Not a good thing, of course. And we as a company, of course, try to address these issues basically. Now, from my point of view, what's quite interesting and what has probably changed over the course of the last few years, and more recently, definitely more so, is that companies and also Greiner now has probably agreed that you can both be sustainable, you can engage with the circular economy, and still have a business model, still make money. It doesn't mean that we all have to become charitable organizations, but really it's not either or, it's really and. You can produce, and probably in some cases we need to produce plastic products essentially. So think of the COVID crisis, think of those tubes you can use when you get your blood drawn, or you put in your sample when you get tested for COVID. Those are products made out of plastics. Those are probably good plastic products. Now there are also many other products around which end up at the landfill in worst case. And here is our endeavor to really keep them in the loop as long as possible, to not use so much virgin material than we used to have. But this is not only a Greiner issue, this is probably an issue for the whole economy, essentially.
Oh, sure, but you're also quite aware of the responsibility and therefore kind of taking the early steps to take countermeasures. I think you've been in that field for quite a long time and also strongly committed to it. Now, Saskia, you've asked a question. Do you mean that a startup delivers a solution and not provide consultancy? I'm not 100% sure what you're referring to, but maybe Christina and Philip are. So I'm thinking maybe you can closer specify it while I'm rambling, but I kind of take it in a way. You got it, Philip?
I think I got it.
Go for it.
Or I can at least tell what we are looking for, essentially. Now we are looking for basically solutions out there. And of course, sometimes startups can provide consultancy, but at the end of the day, we would like to invest money in a solution, basically in a product, in a service, or a combination of both. So I would say, yes, I mean that a startup delivers a solution to a problem that's on the market or a problem that's within Greiner, basically. I don't like the idea to just provide consultancy, because this is what consultants do. I mean, they have their own right in the economy, but I would say startups really should focus on solving problems, solving issues on the market from customers, users, whomever. And hence, I would agree that startups deliver a solution to a significant problem on the market.
Thank you. Christina?
I think, yeah, that's not really what a collaboration is, in my opinion, if you just like give input. So it should be some like creating something together, if you really think about a collaboration. Yeah.
Thank you. Now we have about 3.5 minutes left, and I think that the important thing is just to kind of specify, we're talking about sustainable transformation through collaboration. And collaboration is not just selling something and we're good, right? But it's actually creating something together, and this is a huge challenge. And I think over the last whatever we had hour, we've been able to establish that there's huge opportunities in there, but it takes a couple steps we have to take. And before I get to the last words of Christina and Philip, I'll just try and summarize what we've learned. And if you have one last question, you can shoot it in there, maybe have some time for it. And we said, okay, if we want to create a real collaboration, a meaningful collaboration, for this, well, essentially, we need to build a relationship. We need to start talking. And by talking, we need to find out, well, do we actually share the same values? Do we have the same goals we're trying to achieve? The values could be the SDGs, quite simply. We also have to understand, do we want to provide solutions, or do we just want to talk? It's a bit like dating, right? And then we also said, okay, but before we actually initiate with the real dating, we need to do our homework. We need to do our due diligence. We need to find out, are there things we like and are there things we don't like? Obviously, relationships are built on trust and creating common goals and common grounds. Everything starts quite well, but we need to know where to go. For this, we might need matchmaking platforms to understand and find new potential dating partners. And at the end of the day, it's up to you to make it work. Take your time. Don't try and marry on the first day, because that might be a bit too much as well. And then just take it step by step. Create trust and always see if everything's working out the way you want. Now, Christina, what would you add?
Yeah, I think you have to be realistic about the relationship, about the partnership, not like expect too much of yourself, not expect too much of your partner in order for it to be long-term. But if you like manage your expectations, get your goals in line, and have realistic expectations of each other, I think it can be a match made in heaven.
Thank you very much. Philip?
So yes, to those corporates or to those who would like to engage with startups, I would say start right away. It's not too complicated. It's not rocket science. You need a few resources. You need people who are willing to start this journey. But yeah, just do it and learn along the way. And of course, I have to say that, but it really makes sense to do so. So that one, yeah.
Super fast yes or no question from Nadia is, should a corporate engaging with startups be willing to potentially disrupt its own business model?
Yes.
That's one yes. Christina? That's
yes.
2 yes. I'll give it a yes as well. So 100% of the experts agree yes. And Carmen, obviously all the other questions, as time is up in about 20 seconds, please do follow up later on. I would like to thank our panelists, and I would like to thank Circle 17, and of course also thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for joining in, asking all the questions, and understand this is also our little matchmaking platform. So if you have any questions later on, please do reach out to our experts, reach out to Fanny on Circle 17, or to me also if you want to know anything on startups in Austria. In that sense, thank you very much for coming along. Take care, keep your distance, wash your hands, stay safe. And you know, the thing is, someone has to do something, and that someone is you. In that sense, take care and bye-bye.